Missing persons cases are often mysterious and complicated, not to mention distressing for the family and all of those involved. But what happens when the person isn't really missing at all? Number 5. Agatha Christie is known worldwide for her numerous books and short stories in the detective genre. However, there's something else that you should know about Christie. On November 3rd, 1926, Christie kissed her daughter goodbye and left her home in Berkshire, England. Friends and family went into a panic as Christie would not be located until 11 days later. Christie had run away because her husband wanted a divorce. Christie was heartbroken, and after the pair had an argument, she left her home, headed for Harrogate, North Yorkshire. Her husband realized something was wrong after Christie failed to return home by the next morning. To add to his worries, her car was found abandoned in a quarry, with her driver's license and clothes still inside. Just a day after she'd gone missing, the press caught wind of the famous author's disappearance, and wild stories about what could have possibly happened to her ran wild. One newspaper even offered a $100 reward for information and urged anyone in the local area to join the search for Christie. British Home Secretary William Johnson Hicks put an enormous amount of pressure on the police force, telling them that they needed to find her and fast. Even fellow author Sir Arthur Conan Doyle got involved with the search for Christie, hoping that he may be able to provide further insight into the case. As the days ticked by, hope dwindled, and news had even spread across the pond and was featured on the front page of the New York Times. By this point, suspicions had turned to her husband, Archie Christie. Archie had asked Agatha for a divorce because he'd been cheating on her and had fallen in love with Nancy Neal. Naturally, Agatha was devastated by this news and met his request for a divorce with much resistance. Archie's name would be cleared on December 14th when Agatha Christie was located safe and sound at the Swan Hotel. She checked in under the name Teresa Neal, the name of Archie's girlfriend, and claimed that she was from Cape Town, South Africa. 2 years after she disappeared, Christie divorced her husband and went on to marry a famous archaeologist. She never spoke openly about the 11 days that she was missing and has left no clues behind as to why she did it, although many people speculate she disappeared to get back at her husband. Number 4. John Darwin was well respected within his community in England. He started out his career as a high school science and mathematics teacher before moving on to become a prison guard. By all accounts, the Darwins were a normal family. With 2 sons and respectable jobs, the family had enough money to comfortably get by and get along with everyone in their community. That was until John and his wife Anne bought 2 houses in the year 2000. The plan had been to turn the house into bedsits and rent them out, though the pair ran into deep financial trouble, and by 2002, they were thousands of dollars in debt. The couple knew that they were in trouble and could only think of one way of getting out unscathed. On March 21st, 2000, John Darwin got into his kayak and headed out for one last trip, or so everyone thought. John and Anne had concocted a plan to fake John's disappearance so that Anne could claim a $679,000 life insurance policy, which was more than enough to clear all of their debts. When John didn't turn up for work the next day, his coworkers reported him missing, and his wife Anne stepped into the role of a concerned wife, all while knowing that the whole thing was a hoax. John first made his way to Panama until the attention died down, and then brazenly moved back to England where he lived next door to his family. Meanwhile, his wife Anne stuck to the story that John had gone missing in March of 2002, even leading her adult children to believe that he truly was missing. It all came crashing down for the couple in 2006 when John was pictured with Anne in Panama. Knowing that the game was up, John handed himself in to the British police and claimed to have suffered from amnesia. John had planned on letting Anne take the fall for their scam. However, the courts saw right through their defense, and both were convicted of fraud and sentenced to 6 years and 3 months, with Anne being given 6 years and 6 months. Anne has since given multiple interviews where she expresses remorse for her actions and told British daytime TV show This Morning, quote, "I will have to live with regret of what I did for the rest of my life. This is my chance to tell my side of the story and say I'm sorry." Number 3. Hannah Potts found herself in hot water in July of 2020 after an FBI investigation was opened into her kidnapping that was live-streamed on Facebook. The 23-year-old from Indiana posted a Facebook Live video on July 24, 2020, where she can be heard saying, quote, "Mom, I'm serious. I think someone is coming. Mom, hello. I've got to go, Mom." In the video, Hannah tells her family that she'd been kidnapped by an African-American man driving a maroon car and that she was being held in a tiny room with a single light. Family and friends immediately called 911 to report the incident to police. The local community rallied behind Hannah's family, with flyers being passed around the neighborhood and over 4,500 people joining a Facebook page to help bring Hannah home. 2 days later, on July 26th, Hannah Potts was successfully located after the FBI joined the investigation and gained access to her text messages. It turned out that the kidnapping was a hoax, orchestrated by Potts along with two co-conspirators, Mariah Hopper and Hopper's boyfriend, Joshua Thomas. The text messages between the two have never been fully released, but the FBI has commented that the pair discussed Hannah's kidnapping, as well as talking about destroying their phones and SIM cards. After discovering these messages, Hopper's residence was searched thoroughly, and officers found Potts hiding in the basement. Hannah's family were overjoyed that she'd been found safe and were left wondering why a close friend of all people would want to do this to her. Their world was turned upside down when Hannah revealed to the FBI during her interrogation that, quote, "I wanted to have this experience for research purposes in a manuscript that I'm writing." She also revealed that she'd been rehearsing the terrifying Facebook video for at least a week before posting it. Her family have since turned their back on her, with her sister Lauren saying, quote, "I hope she's prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. My family feels extremely embarrassed and hurt by her actions, and the fact that she's tried pinning this on a person of color." Hopper and Thomas were sentenced to probation and 270 days in prison, respectively. Meanwhile, the charges against Potts are still awaiting an outcome. Number 2. In December of 2019, Karen Espindola sent a text message to her mother that read, quote, "Mom, this man looks suspicious and rude." Her mother told her to get into a different taxi and made sure that she was safe. Minutes passed by and Espindola didn't respond, and when her family found out she didn't make it home, they knew something was very wrong. Her brother took to Facebook to ask if anyone had seen his sister, and asked several people to spread hashtag "We're looking for you, Karen," in the hopes of making the news go viral, and it worked. Within hours, the Mexican media had picked up on the story and were reporting Espindola's disappearance across the country. They described her as a 30-year-old with blonde hair and was last seen wearing a flowery blouse and red lipstick. Espindola's case caused a media frenzy, with people from across the country reaching out to offer help and support her family. The mayor of Mexico City also released a statement assuring residents that everything was being done to find Karen and telling the public to stay alert. Women in Mexico City were now left wondering if there was perhaps a serial kidnapper on the loose and whether any one of them would be safe. 14 hours later, Karen returned home as if nothing had happened. CCTV showed Karen dancing at a bar and that she'd sent the text message to her family so she could go on a night out. Mexico was left horrified at the fact that Karen had faked her own kidnapping just so she could spend time partying with friends. The media and general public turned against her, with one newspaper writing, quote, "Karen mobilized society, social networks, and Mexico City while she was out partying." Number 1. The world of the Schrenker family would be turned upside down on January 11, 2009, when the head of the family, Marcus Schrenker, left the Anderson airfield in Indiana headed for Florida in his plane. As his plane was cruising over Birmingham, Alabama, Schrenker made a distress call, telling air traffic control that his windshield was smashed and he was losing a lot of blood. He informed air traffic control that he was going to put the plane into autopilot mode and parachute to safety. It wouldn't be until 10 o'clock that evening that Schrenker's plane was discovered in Milton, Florida. Those who arrived at the scene feared the worst and wondered how they were going to tell his family. But as they got closer, they noticed that the windshield was perfectly fine and there was no sign of blood. So what had happened to Marcus Schrenker, and why did he make a distress call? After jumping out of his plane in Alabama, Schrenker made his way to Childersburg, Alabama. He made his way to a residence where he told the owner that he'd been canoeing and been in an accident and needed help. Not wanting to let a stranger into their house, the resident called the local police, who gave Schrenker a lift to a local hotel. Schrenker checked into the hotel using a fake name and paid in cash, anticipating that police would soon learn about the plane crash and come after him. He knew that police didn't just want to talk to him about the mysterious crash that happened the day before. It turns out Schrenker was being investigated by the FBI for forging signatures and withdrawing his client's investment funds at the insurance company he owned. Knowing that he was in hot water, Schrenker saw only one way out. After fleeing from the hotel, he traveled to Quincy, Florida, staying at a campground where he knew he wouldn't need to give out much personal information. During the stay at the campground, Schrenker made a fatal mistake. He sent an email to a close friend admitting that the crash had been a hoax and that he planned to disappear forever. Luckily for authorities, the friend turned the email over to them straight away, and they were able to track him down. Friends and family were outraged at the hoax, and since then, Schrenker was found guilty of destroying an aircraft and causing the US Coast Guard to respond when no help was needed. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison in order to pay compensation to the US Coast Guard. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.